I am. There we go. Howdy, y'all. Good evening. So I got you there. This going here. Let's. Oh, I see. Neat. There it goes. Okay, good. Oops. Hi there, Jim. Hello, y'all. We're just waiting for everybody to trickle in, and I'm making sure I'm all set up the way I want to be here. If you wanna, here, I will in the chat. I will send a link to our class website again, just so you have it easily accessible there. There's our class site. As we start off, I'm gonna be sharing my screen and sort of showing you some stuff in Excel, but I will have you pop onto the site at one point to download a file so we can all work on the same file together. Good evening there. Hello. There we go. Alright, we only have a few people in here, so I'm definitely going to give us another couple minutes to let people trickle in. I did put the link to our class website in the chat. I'll do that again once more people get in here, just to... Because actually, I don't know if you can see the chat that you weren't in here for, if you can only see chat since you've joined the call. Oops, wrong button. Awesome. No, I'm proud of you. That's awesome. And yeah, just like last week was honestly just like a lot of vocabs and just how to navigate the screen that Excel presents. But that's the foundation, right? Like if you don't know that stuff, we can't really talk about much else. Um, and sort of like I mentioned last time, even having that stuff gives you at least enough that when you try to Google how to do something, you have a better shot of either finding what you're looking for, or and when you do find what you're looking for, actually being able to like understand what they're saying when they have like a tutorial, or it's just an answer on a forum page or something like that. Cool. Yeah. I'm excited to. Yeah, tonight's gonna be. I think tonight is gonna be some really useful stuff. Um, just it's gonna be sort of everyday sort of stuff that you need to do with Excel. That is interesting that your kids took Excel. That seems like it's a hit or miss sort of thing. Just sort of depends on the school. But honestly, I think we should, if not Excel necessarily, just spreadsheets in general, because there's a lot of different. There's Microsoft's Excel. There's the Open Office. It's called Calc. There's Google Sheets, which is actually what I prefer to use. But yeah, if you learn how to use spreadsheets a little bit, it just unlocks a whole bunch of stuff you can do. Cool. Yeah. No, I didn't get any formal like education around Excel until college. Unfortunately, like we did not learn to use it in high school. Um, all right, y'all. We have a few people, but there are 9 people total registered for the class. So I'm gonna give us until 5:35 before I actually jump into the content for the night, just to give people a chance to, because I know with the timing of this, people are probably trying to like get home and then get on, stuff like that. Howdy, good evening. I am gonna mute everybody just for little bits of background noise and stuff like that. But you can always, if you have a question or something, you can always just unmute yourself. Little microphone icon down below all of our pictures. Alrighty, we are at 5:35. If we have anybody else pop in the next few minutes, I'll let them in, and I bet they'll be able to sort of catch up with what we're doing, and I can answer questions. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to day 2 of Excel1. Last time we sort of covered the basics, vocab, how to navigate the screen, just what all the stuff is. As we encounter those things, we can review them this time around. As always, if I'm doing something and you have a question, you want me to show you again, just unmute yourself and ask. You can use the raise hand button, but because I'm sort of going back and forth between not only 2 monitors, but different screens on those monitors, I may not see your hand raised. So yeah, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, so tonight, oh, there we go. Ooh, and actually, before I get us going, here is the link in the chat to our class website, which you don't need to go to just yet. You're perfectly welcome to, but we will need to at one point. So our goal for tonight is we're going to be focused on working with spreadsheet data and content. So just the actual information in the spreadsheet. Tonight won't be, I don't think there's anything about like formatting and stuff tonight. That's actually going to be day 3. So day 3 will focus a lot on the visuals and how to adjust that. Tonight we're really just diving into, okay, how do you combine data? How do you do more than just store information in Excel? And so these are sort of our bullet points here. Combine information from multiple cells, right? Be able to add this value and that value together. Reference cells on other sheets. So you have something on one sheet and you need to combine it with something on the sheet you're currently on. We can do that. We're going to talk about functions for the first time, so some of the built-in functions. And finally, sort of a slightly new addition to this class, because they just added it to the online version of Excel, is named ranges, which are useful and very handy. So yeah, so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to jump over into, I have a blank Excel file opened just so I can demonstrate some stuff. I have you may have noticed on the website, I have a file link to that we'll look at together about halfway through tonight, maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, so the first thing I want to show us here well, I need a little bit of data, actually, a little bit, something to manipulate here. So I'm going to do something we sort of talked about last time, which was I can put information in here, and then we can select it, and when you get that big plus, or that skinny plus there, you can drag it down, and it'll just continue that pattern for you. So I'm going to do 2 of those. Sorry, I made my cursor bigger so you all can see it a little better, but then it's also making my navigation harder. Oops. I'm going to do 2 different patterns here. And so as I was doing that, as I typed, I just hit enter, and it automatically went down to the next cell so I could keep typing. And now this, just to clarify from last time, that little square down there in the lower right, if you cursor over it, your cursor changes from sort of a fat plus sign, like a really thick one, to more of a thinner spread out, like crosshair one. And if you click and drag, it will just continue that pattern for you. So this column A is going up by 2s, column B is going up by 5s. I just wanted some information in here to work with. Because the first thing I want to show us tonight is what's called the equals operator, which is, like it might sound, just an equal sign. Actually, you know what? Let me make this a little bit bigger. Oops. Oh, sorry, y'all. There we go. Oh, what's this? Sorry, y'all. There you go. That feels a little bit better. Like things are a little bit bigger. Cool. Okay. So yeah, first thing I want to show you is this equals operator. So if you just type an equal sign, this is your signal. This is how you tell Excel that you want it to calculate something. You want it to do more than just keep the value you put in the cell. So normally if we type a number, it just puts the number in there. If we type some text, it just puts some text in there. So an equal sign is how we tell Excel, do something else for me. So one of the things we could do, Excel is at its heart a calculator. So we could do something simple. We could do something like 10 plus 5 here, and it'll just add it together for us. So you can, every single cell is its own little calculator. So we can totally do that. Notice I hit enter, and it says 15, but when I cursor over it, or when I select it, when I make it the active cell, and you look up here in the formula bar, it shows us what's actually stored in the cell is equals 10 plus 5, right? And so this is our first time where we're encountering the way a cell looks, the 15, being different than what the cell actually contains. And that's what the equal sign does for us, is it says, I'm going to enter some instructions, you process those instructions, and then display the result of those instructions. So doing basic calculations is only semi-useful. We have this data over here. So let me scroll over. And so let's say I just very simply want to add the two cells in this first row together. Add this 2 and this 5. What's nice about that is I can say equals, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use the reference. So this cell is in column A, row 1, so we say A equals A1. And actually right now, I could just hit enter, and boom, now this cell is an exact copy of A1. If I go in here and I change what's in cell A1, this cell over here changes accordingly and like immediately. So these two cells will always end up matching each other. I didn't want to do that. That's not really what I want there. So I'm going to hit Control and Z and undo what I just did there. Return that back to a 2. I'm going to go here, double click on that so I can edit it. It still says equals A1. And now I want to add to that cell B1. Notice it color codes these references. A1 it shows in blue and it highlights it blue. B1 it highlights in red and it shows it as red, just to help you navigate, right? So you can see what cells this current cell is interacting with. Now that I've done that, I'm going to hit enter, and boom, changes to 7, which is the total of 2 and 5, right? Add those together. And now, just like I did before, if I go in and change these, changes to a 9 again. Now that updates in real time, right? And so this is our first step into what is ultimately the real power of Excel. Is the way you any cell can reference any other cell, which means you can display a copy of that information if you need to, but you can combine the information together. Oh, that's right. So let me double click in there. And so I did this with addition, but we could do it with subtraction. Just do a dash. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a little table here showing all of these. So I want a header row. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going over here on the edge of the row, right on the number 1. I'm gonna right click or 2-finger click depending on what device you're on, and I'm gonna go to insert rows, and it just inserted a row up top, because what I want is I want a heading. I want to say this is addition, this is subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to change this to a plus. Do that. I'm going to show the same thing with subtraction, which is a dash. This all works the way you'd probably expect. Oh, I'm also going to go and change this back to a 2. There we go. Why is that saying -5? Cool, we have to... Oh, ha! No, this is great. I forgot I lowered these down. And so I put A1 here, which is this cell up here, which doesn't have anything in it, which means it's doing 0, -5, -5. So it treats a blank cell like a 0, which is what we just learned from that. There we go. That makes sense. And now for these ones, multiplication, if you're not used to doing computational stuff on a computer, is the asterisk. Oops. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. The star, which is Shift 8. Or if you have a number pad on the side of your keyboard, there should be just a dedicated key for it. Oops. And again, notice though that I did A1, A2 times B2. There we go. And then division is just a slash, which also on your number pad should have a dedicated key. Otherwise, it is beside your right shift. B2 right there. Notice it does it as a decimal. Excel does not naturally mess with fractions, do anything really with fractions. You can get it to display fractions, but it is a pain. And if that's something anybody in particular actually needs, we can talk about that sort of separately. But yeah, those are the basic operations there. I will, in addition to sharing the video at the end of the class, I will also share this Excel file so that anything I do in here, you can go in and you actually click on the cells and see what I typed in there. The other thing I wanted to show is, well, I wanted to spell addition correctly. We can get way more complicated with this. That's just a single operation in each one, but we can do it. We can do as complicated of an operation as we want, and Excel will follow the order of operations. The Pemdas are parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction. I grouped these ones together because it doesn't do multiplication before division, it moves left to right. So if there's division before multiplication in your equation, it'll do that. So we can do A2 plus A3 times, let's say B3, right there. And so because it should do multiplication before addition, it should multiply the A3 and the B3 together, so it should get 40 and then add 2. So our answer should be 42. Well, there you go. Totally is. You can, let's say we didn't want it to do that though. Equals A2 plus A3 times B3. Let's say what we actually needed it, there we go. We actually needed it to add together the A2 and the A3 first. We needed it to do 2 plus 4 and then multiply by 10. So you get 60. You can put parentheses in and it will respect those parentheses. This might be hearkening back to middle school, high school math days. Basically, anything you could get a calculator to do, you can definitely get Excel to do. And more, because it's more sophisticated. But if any of the things you all are using Excel for, if part of the issue is sort of a math issue, let me know, and that's something we can talk about like after class or set up a separate meeting, because my background's math and I can totally help you with that part of it. But yeah, so this will respect order of operations. What was there was one. Did somebody ask a question? I'm so sorry. No? Okay, cool. Let's see what I have on here. Order of operations. Oh, right. Okay. So, I showed here, I'm gonna grab all of this. I want to move it out of the way, so I'm gonna select this cell, and then while it's sort of the thick plus, I'm going to grab and drag and select this whole thing, so I now have a range. I want to move this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, go to cut, it grays it out, puts that little animated border around it, and I just want this to exist over here, and so now I'm going to paste, right click on that cell and click paste, and it moves the whole thing, including the numbers, and the numbers are still those equations, those references. So maybe, this is obviously like just made up information, but now that I've done this work of doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division for that row, it would be kind of a pain in the butt to have to retype this for every single row. I could copy it, so I can select that row and I could right click, or I can do Control C and right down here hit Control V to paste it. And notice what it did. I selected this, and when it pasted it, it changed the formula. Instead of A2 B2, it changed it to A3 B3. It understood that what I wanted was not to paste 7 again, but to add together the two cells that are to the left of this cell. And I could do that with each thing here. I could in fact highlight the whole row, copy it, paste right there. It'll paste on top of that. Boom. And now it did it for all of them. Now that refers to the row 3 for both of those. That refers to row 3 for both of those. Even better, though, than having to select and copy and paste it into each one, I can highlight here, go to the handle, and just like we did to get these numbers here with the pattern recognition, I can drag the handle down, and it just automatically does it all for me. Oh wait, so right here, double click there. It's thinking about something though. That's just not a way I've used it, so I'm not sure what it's trying to do. That's a good question. Oh, yeah, that I think, and actually I think it could work for something like this if I had my sheet set up differently. I think what it's doing when I double click, so notice it thinks for just a second. You can see my cursor change. It's trying to figure out what I want, and it doesn't know, so it just doesn't do anything. So if I had my sheet set up a little differently, I think that would work. However, if you try to do that, you try to get it to automatically just go down. If you double click and doesn't do anything, just drag it, and it will then say, okay, you clearly want to take everything that you have highlighted and take that down, and it will intelligently, well, I won't say intelligently, it will automatically change these references so that they refer to row 8, which is the same row this is all in. So this is using, so last week we talked about, the A2, the B2, the names of the cells, their address. We call it a reference. These are what are referred to as relative references. I have typed in A2 and B2 because that's what's right here. But sort of under the hood, what you can't see, what Excel is understanding when I type that in this cell, I type A2, B2, and it says, okay, yeah, I see those cells, but it's also understanding that A2 is in the same row, but 1, 2, 3 columns to the left. B2 is same row, 2 columns to the left. And that is actually the information that it's pasting down to all of these. It's telling them, okay, you need to add together 2 cells, one that's 3 to the left and one that's 2 to the left. And that's how it knows to automatically update these references. However, we don't always want Excel to do that. So, I'm going to make a new sheet really quick. Let's do... Okay, I'm just going to give myself some new... Oh, for that new sheet, we talked about this last week, but I'll remind us. The way I got a new sheet here is I just click this plus, and now I have our original sheet that we were working on, and I have this new sheet, which is not zoomed in like the other one. Okay. The sheets can be independently zoomed in. That's good to know. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of information here. Boom. So notice that pattern recognition works with decimals as well. It goes up by 0.25 each time there. I'm going to give us this, and I'm also going to give us a value here. Let's do 80%. I'm going to type 80% there. And now, if what I want to find this percentage of each of these numbers, right? Maybe you're trying to figure out a discount price for a list of items. Maybe maybe there's a reimbursement rate, something like that. So the way we find percentages is with multiplication. So I'm going to say A2. So I'm going to say equals A2 times C2. Right there. Boom. And we're going to do that. So here's a couple of things that Excel did for us automatically. One, the arithmetic, like we already talked about. But two, I typed in 80 and put the percentage symbol in there, and it understood what that meant mathematically, because it clearly didn't multiply 10 times 80, because 10 times 80 would have been 800, and a little bit more because it's 10.25. So it actually correctly multiplied 10.25 by 0.8, which is the decimal version of that percentage. So that putting that symbol in there lets Excel know, treat this number not the way it looks, but as a percentage. That's really useful. Okay. Now I have a formula in here. And so, just like we did before, I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down. But now all of a sudden I got zeros. 80% of 10.5 is definitely not 0. So if we double click into the cell to see what happened, so it moved all the references down. It moved this reference down, which is what I want, but it also moved this reference down, which is, I don't want that. I don't want to have to put 80% beside everything, because then if I ever needed to change that percentage, I'd have to change it in every cell, right? So I could put 80% in all of them. I could totally copy this, paste it down like that, but if I ever needed to change it, that would be a pain. So here's what we're going to do instead. In this formula, right here, we're gonna switch our relative reference to something called an absolute reference. The way we do that is with a dollar sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of that C, and then a dollar sign in front of that 2. It still counts it as reference, but what that tells Excel to do is anytime it copies that formula, don't change that reference. Leave that reference at exactly C2. So instead of being a relative reference, as in 3 columns to the left, now it says no, always use specifically C2. Now I'm going to click enter. Still gives us the 8.2, but now, so it's not going to update these because these ones don't know that I updated this. That doesn't matter. I'm going to override them. So I'm going to grab this, grab the handle, drag it all the way down, and boom. Now we have 80% of all of these. And if I realize, oh, my 80% was wrong, or the percentage gets updated, we're like, oh no, now we're going with an 82% here. I can change that to 82, and all of these update all at the same time. So changing the one number that actually changed updated everything. Which again, this is part of the power of Excel. It just lets us automatically do all this stuff. Taylor, did you have a question? No, you're good. I can hear you, yeah. Tell me, say more about your question. Where else might I put the... This, yeah. Yes, that's correct. No, not at all. I just wanted to make sure I was, understanding your question. Yeah, so that we have, oops, I moved that. We have two things going on here. In terms of references, there's like 4 or 5 things actually going on. We have relative reference, since this doesn't have dollar signs, which means Excel assumes by default that a reference is a relative reference, right? You have to be very specific and put those dollar signs in order to make it an absolute reference. And so, oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, I see. Yeah, this could be. I'm using the top row for convenience right now. Um, but yeah, you can basically do this process anywhere. Um, and and so sometimes what you might need to play with. So one thing I didn't spell out with this is we've actually locked this reference in 2 ways. That's why there's 2 dollar signs here. The dollar sign in front of the C tells Excel, don't change the column reference for this. And the dollar sign in front of the 2 tells it, don't change the row reference. But we can actually lock those things independently of each other. So watch what happens. So if I delete the 2 there, this number doesn't change because it's still calculating the right thing. But now, if I drag this down, I get those pesky zeros again. Because when I dragged it down, it's just assuming, oh, if I go 1 row down here, I need to pull all of these references down by 1. Say that one more time. You broke up just a little bit right at the beginning. Yes, that's exactly right. But notice what I can do. I can take away that dollar sign, but put this dollar sign back in, drag this down, and now that fixes it. It's back calculating it correctly, because since I'm dragging this downward, it's not trying to change the column reference at all. If I drag it over here, notice we get a 0 again, because it's now referencing to the right. Since I dragged it to 1 row to the right, or 1 column to the right, it moved both of these references to the right there. If I didn't want it to do that, though, I could lock. Oops. I could lock the columns like that. So I'm locking both of the columns now. And so I could drag that to the right, or I can hit Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste it. It all works the same. And now it's working correctly. Well, correctly for my example. Even though I moved the reference, or moved the cell, it didn't actually move those references. Honestly, so I'm demonstrating this. Definitely, play with it for a little minute as you're trying to figure stuff out. It takes a little bit of practice to sort of, and it's really good to sort of experience. And that's what we're actually going to do with the example file I have for us. What I'm going to have you all open that up, and we're going to work through sort of a specific sort of task that's similar to something you might have to actually do in Excel. Let's see. Let's see, what else do we have? Relative, absolute. Yeah, that was all of the arithmetic stuff. Other questions, more questions, clarification, anything else you want to see again, or? Cool. Moving right along then. what I'm going to have you do, I'll throw the link in chat again just so it's right there for you. Go ahead and go to the class website. And you can either scroll down or you can click day 2 and it'll just jump you down to day 2. And then under the Excel1 day 2 business expenses file, just go ahead and click that blue link. And what it's going to do is it's going to download an Excel file to your computer just automatically. This is the Excel file that we're going to use. And I made this file. It, there should be nothing wrong with it. It should be perfectly safe to download to your computer. Once it's downloaded, you can, if you have it bookmarked, you can click on it, or you can click, if I can get to my scroll bar, there we go. Right here, you can click the Excel button on our website, and that'll take you to the main Excel screen. Or it may take you to a sign-in screen first. I'm already logged in. And what I'm going to show you is how to get that Excel file that you just downloaded opened up. If you're using the desktop version of Excel, you don't have to do this part. You can just go to you can go to File and you can just go to Open and find it probably in your Downloads folder. But for those of you using the web version like I am, once you have it downloaded, you can go over to Upload and Open right over here. And it's just going to open your... Oops. Sorry about that. It's just going to... That is interesting. What is... Sorry about that, y'all. Background is jumping around. It's just going to open your file browser. I'm going to go to Downloads. Where... Well, it'll go to your file browser. Oh, I see what's happening when I move that. It moves the whole thing. There we go. Size modified. Here we go. There we go. So just navigate to wherever it downloaded on your computer. Click it. Open it. My interface is right there, probably looks a little differently than yours. I'm running Linux, and so it just doesn't look like Windows. It'll think for a minute, it'll upload it, and then it should just automatically open the file. And boom, we have a very basic Excel file with some real information in it. These are my actual business expenses from 2018. So this is my year of business expenses. I have stripped out all of my formatting, a whole bunch of stuff that I had my expenses file do, and I pulled just the data out. And we're going to sort of rebuild together some of the functionality I have in my business expense spreadsheet. Anybody struggling to get this open? We're good? Okay, cool. And you certainly don't have to open it right now. I just wanted to provide it to you so you can sort of follow along if you want to. But if you want to open it later and watch through the video as you do it, that's totally fine too. All right, now that we have this, so this may even look like an Excel file that you already have, not really any formatting, basic headers, stuff like that. So right now it is literally just a list of the date, the amount, who that expense was paid to, and sort of keyword or tag style description. And that's it. And it's just in a long list, all the expenses for the year. If my thing will scroll, right? Go down there. Not even actually a terribly long list. Am I over 100? I am just slightly over 100 rows. So one of the first things that we might want with some data like this is a total, right? I have each of these separate expenses, but it would be really nice to know my total expenses for the year. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself some space to put this total. Right up here on row 1, I'm going to right click or 2-finger click, and I'm going to go insert row again. There we go. I'm actually going to do that twice just to give a little bit of space. And I'm also going to zoom this in. If things are ever small and you need me to make stuff bigger, just let me know. I can make stuff considerably bigger if it looks too small on the screen. All right, so right here, I'm just going to go, I'm going to say total just to label this. Hit tab so that my active cell moves to the right there. And now, right here, the number I want here is the total of all of these expenses. So what we've seen so far is that we could go equals, and my expenses start in column B, row 5, so I could say B5 plus B6 plus B7. But this is clearly not the way to do this, right? I have over 100 of these. I don't want to do this way. I could. We definitely could. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're gonna use a range reference rather than a cell reference. So remember, one of these boxes is a cell. A group of them is called a range. So the range I want, it starts at cell B5 and goes all the way down. So I'm just dragging and it's scrolling for me. We could also, so I can select them that way. What you can also do, click on the box. And there we go. Hold down Shift and hit page down, or the down arrow. Page down is going to scroll further, or you can just hit the down arrow and just hold the down arrow, and it will select those automatically as you go. And boom. So that's the whole range that I want here. I want to show you one thing in case we don't actually need to store the total. Like we don't want it to we don't need it to display. We just need to know what it is really quick. Notice that Excel does a couple of nice things for us just down here. It gives us the average. So the average of all of those numbers. However, I do believe it's including the blank spaces as zeros, so the average is going to be a little off. It gives us the count. Actually, you know what? I don't think it is. I think it's smart enough, since it only says 74, but there's clearly more than 100 rows here. I think it's excluding all of the spaces. And then it goes through and it also gives us the sum. There's a little drop-down arrow here where you can actually have it display other information. The minimum value, the maximum value, the numerical count, as in how many of the cells contain numbers. So yeah, just a little bit of quick reference information. What I wanted to look at was the fact that this range goes all the way down to 113. I didn't need to highlight it for that, but all the way down to 113. That's important because what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to type equals. Oh, I skipped ahead a little bit, y'all. I'm so sorry. Jeez. This is going to be our first use of a function. So there's no way to use a plus sign and add all of those together without saying plus each one of like the 74. However, Excel has a whole bunch of built-in formulas or functions that will do various types of calculations for us. The one we're going to use here, since we just want to add stuff together, is called sum. So I wrote equals, and now once I start typing text, it's going to start auto-suggesting a bunch of options for us. So SU, and then as you go down, as you just cursor over them, it gives you a little summary of what it does. Sum adds numbers together. It finds the sum. And so I'm going to click on that one, or you can use your arrow keys to arrow down and select it. I'm going to enter. It makes it all caps because syntactically, formulas should be all caps. It understands if they're not, but it uses that to sort of get your attention and say, there's a formula typed in here. And now that I've clicked on that and selected this formula, it gives me this little like cheat sheet about what this formula does and how to use it. So it gives me a little example of what this formula should look like. It says sum, and then in parentheses, so all formulas are going to have the name of the formula followed by a set of parentheses where all the stuff goes that you want that formula to do. It says sum, number 1, number 2. It's basically saying if you put a bunch of numbers in here, it'll add them together. Gives a little description, and then it tells you where it says number 1, number 2, it gives you even more detail about what those numbers are. And then there's a link that you can click on, which will open a little help pane over here, which will go into even more depth about that particular formula, right? It has a little video, all sorts of stuff. Other related formulas. Honestly, this is super useful. This helps you avoid having to Google stuff if you're just trying to figure out how something within Excel works. I find that those help things are pretty explanatory. What we're going to do here, though, is I want to tell it add together all of the numbers between B5, which was my first column, or my first row, rather. Here, I'm going to click this arrow to get this out of the way so you can see. Notice it highlights B5. And now I'm going to use something we haven't used yet. I'm going to use a colon. And then I'm going to type B113, which was that bottom row. Notice what it did is it then went down and highlighted all the way down. And if I go down, it highlighted all the way down to 113. And so what this, click that, there we go. What this colon does is it says instead of a cell, it creates a range. So the first reference for your range is the upper left corner of your range, and the second number is the lower right corner of your range. So you can actually make select not just a single row or column, you can select sort of a rectangle grid of items if you need to. In our case, the information I want is just in a single row, so this will do the job. And then, yeah, hit enter, and boom. There is our total. What's really nice, because this is referencing all of this stuff, if I go in and go, oh, shoot, that FedEx office, I totally forgot that I also bought tape. And so this shouldn't be 210, this is 535. And I type that in, and it updates our total, just like we would want. Oh, right. So this is great, and this works because this is an entire year of expenses for me, right? But what if, and so here, what I'm going to do really quick so I can modify this, I am going to right click on the sheet, and I'm going to click duplicate. And now I have, it says sheet 1 in parentheses 2 because it's a second copy. Notice it copied this sheet exactly. It didn't keep it at the same zoom level, but that's okay. Oops. There we go. The reason I want to do this is because I want to get rid of some of the information here. I'm going to go down to, oh, look at that. I didn't have any expenses in February. I don't even remember what was happening. Oops. Well, that's okay. I'm just going to delete all of this stuff. Delete rows, clear contents. Boom. Okay. Back to home. Okay. So what I did there, let me undo that. Starting here, I am holding down my shift key, and I'm arrowing over to the right to select those. And now I want to select everything down to the bottom of the sheet. So while I'm still holding shift, I could either arrow down and hold down the down arrow, or I could hold down shift and hit the page button and page down, which is a little bit faster. can also just hit the end button, which should be up near the top of your keyboard. Oh, since I've already arrowed down, it's not working. That's fine. Page down again, and boom, I've highlighted all of this stuff, and then yeah, I can right click and just go clear contents, and boom. Oops. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do that was so we could talk about, so notice this is still giving me my total. I deleted a bunch of stuff, so it's updated and it's a smaller number. And it goes way, way down. I'm going to change it so it only goes down to 16. Okay. But now, if I come down here and I have a February expense, $40 for something somewhere. Notice that this total did not update because it does not include that 40. So I could go in and I could say, okay, well that means I have to go to 18. And now it includes it. We can see it updated right there. But I'd have to do that every time. We could do what we did before and make this just go down to like 1,000. And that's fine. Except, what if somewhere down here I want to do something else? I want to put a row that does something else that might have a number in it. Then this is going to select it. Or what if, actually even more likely, what if this is a big file and there might be more than 1,000? Right off the bat, it goes, yeah, it's going to keep going down. That'll be slow, so I don't want to go all the way down. But what we can do is, if we don't want this to end at all, I can do B5 to just B, and I don't even put a number. And what that says is start at this cell and go all the way down column B. Oops. Oh, it didn't like it. Hold on a sec. Oh, did they change that? Give me one sec, y'all. Well, shoot. That works in Sheets. I think that is our only option, is you just have to put a big number in. Let me double check that. Yep, never mind. Microsoft removed the ability to do that. Apparently it was breaking things. Sorry, I just looked that up really quick. Okay, so never mind. We can't select the whole row, or the whole column, but what you can do is just enter a big number, and that effectively does the same thing. So yeah, so as we do that, now as we go down, if we add more expenses, I'm just going to copy this. 40, and now that is increased to 295, which is kind of nice. Oh, awesome. So we have our total. So that this is using the sum function, but there's a bunch more functions. What if we also want the average, our average expense? Doesn't really make a ton of sense in this particular case because these are all sorts of different types of expenses, so I don't know what the average would tell us. But if we wanted it, we do equals, and I'm going to start typing average, A-V-E, and then right down there is the average. Notice there's a bunch of other functions that have the word average in them. We're just going to select our regular average. I will tell you just right now, we are not going to cover all of the functions in Excel because there's just innumerable. And so many of them are for very specific like data analysis purposes and things like that. But we're gonna cover a fair few. equals average, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before, B5 to be, 1,000. And then what it's going to do is calculate that average for me. Apparently, my average expense was $26.91. This, I do believe, is counting these empty cells as zeros. We can fix that. Is that what I want to do right now? Hold on a sec. I planned out the order I wanted to do this stuff in a very particular way, just to try to build on stuff. Sure, why not? So one thing we can do, we're like, okay, we have some data in here that is not relevant. So I have those. So one thing we could do is we could just go in and delete all of the empty rows. When I made this, the rows separated weeks, and so they were useful to me, and so I don't want to do that. It's laid out in this way for a particular reason. So instead what we can do is go in here, and instead of average equals AVE, I'm going to select this one, which is average if. Finds the average for the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. So I'm going to click that, and it pops this up. I'm going to click this arrow to expand this, and so it explains what we're trying to do. The first thing we need in our parentheses is the range that we want to find the average of. So that is going to be, that's the thing we typed in before, B5 to be 1,000. Oops. And now, if I hit comma, so comma is how you separate the different pieces of your function. Range is no longer highlighted, but criteria is. Criteria is in green text here, and it highlights the row in the table here to explain what's going on. So criteria is the condition that defines which cells will be used to find the average. So what I'm going to do is, so notice it gives us an example here. It tells us put it in parentheses, or not parentheses, in quotation marks. I want to find the average if the cell is greater than 0. I know I don't have any negative expenses, and I also know if I had an expense that was 0, I didn't put it in here. So I know anything that reads as 0, like an empty cell, is not relevant to this average. So I'm going to put greater than 0 in quotes there. And now, we can hit comma again. So notice that this part of the formula is in brackets. That means it's an optional piece. Range and criteria you have to put in the formula in order for it to work. But this average range here, it says, are the actual cells to be used to find the average? If omitted, the cells and range are used. So that's getting more specific than I need in this case, so I'm just going to leave that off. We don't need it, and it'll calculate it just fine because it's in brackets. And now I'll hit enter. Oh, it does give me the 26.91. Well, son of a gun. It was intelligently excluding those zeros, apparently. Very good. Or these zeros. If I only wanted to average, we could do something else though. If I didn't care about expenses that were less than $1, I could put greater than 1 here. I don't think I have any that are less than 1 on this page though. So let's put greater than 10. And boom. And now we can see it changed that average there because we're only averaging together the cells where the number is greater than 1. Yeah, so those are a couple of our formulas. Sum, average, you specify a range using that colon. So that's sort of one of the big pieces, technical pieces here. Is just that colon there. What else did I want to show you with this? Create an average row. Um, oh, right. Good. Uh, let's see. Oh, something we might be able to do, or something we might want to do, is because there are different types of expenses in here. We might want to find the um, the total of each of the different like types of expenses. Um, that is a slightly more involved process, and that's something we're gonna I want to dive into on the last day. So the last day, I want to sort of bring a bunch of stuff together, and I'm gonna take us through making an even more sophisticated sheet that does cool stuff like that, like total the individual types of expenses and things like that. That'll also be when we talk about filtering and sorting and things like that. When you want to take the information you have and only look at parts of it. So cool. That is our formulas. Questions? Anything you want me to show you more of or differently? Cool. We're feeling all right? Then, let's move on. Let's keep trucking here. So that was combining different information in different ways. One, just using cell references and arithmetic, and then actually using formulas and range references there. We can, so we have only referenced cells that are on the same sheet so far. So what I want to look at now is, so this is this sheet right here. I'm going to get rid of my February expenses right there, because this sheet has all my January expenses. So I'm going to right click on the sheet tab right down here, go up to rename, and I'm just going to call this JAN, January, right there. And now what I want to do is I'm going to make a new sheet. So last time to rename this, I right-clicked. You can also double-click on the sheet name. And I'm going to call this, I don't have any February expenses, so I'm going to call this MAR for March. I'm going to make another one, double-click on it, and call this APR for April. And I could do the entire year here. For speed's sake, I'm not going to. But what I am going to go in and do is I'm going to go to my full year-long one, and I'm going to select all of my March expenses here. Not too many. I highlighted them, so I used, just to sort of talk about what I did here, click there, hold down Shift, arrow over to the right to select all the columns, arrow down to the last row. Now they're all highlighted. Hold down Control, hit C to copy them, pop over to my March tab, and oh, you know what I'm going to need? I'm going to need my headers. So I'm clicking down the second row here. Actually, header, fourth row right there. I'm going to paste them right there because one of the things I want is I'm going to copy, I'm going to do the same thing up here, highlight all of this, Control C, go over to March, go to the upper cell there, Control V, and paste it. So I got the headings, and I also got my total here. Except I missed. Oh, it's because I have a space on that one. I wondered why I was missing. So notice when I double click on it, I'm missing my one of my expenses there. So to make it look like everything else, I'm going to highlight there, Control X, Control V, just to move it down. And now, oh, this is a great thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking cell references. Notice I'm still missing it. This is how, I was going to say smart again. This isn't what I wanted to happen, so I wouldn't necessarily describe it as smart. But Excel tried to do something for me here. So before I move that, so I'm going to hit Control Z to undo what I just did. There we go. Move it back up. And now notice, it starts at row 5, and I'm missing row 4. And I'm like, oh, well, that's because in all of the other, in my January one, I have a space right there. And I want them to all look the same. So I'm going to grab all of this, Control X, select one row down, and now paste it so that it moves it all down. But Excel knows that I was referencing the second row down in this set of cells, and so it changed this reference automatically for me. Which is not what I wanted it to do, so I'm going to go in here and just manually change this to B5. And there we go. But yeah, so just something to be aware of if you, as you're moving stuff around, if you notice it breaks one of your formulas, that might be why it broke your formula, is because it also changed the reference when you move something around, and you might just have to go in and manually change your reference in your formula. Okay. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to grab my April expenses as well, just so we have a few months to play with. 30th, and there we go. There's my last April one. Control C to copy it. Go over to April. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Before I copy that stuff, just so my layout cooperates better this time, I'm going to copy these first. Notice it says 0 because there's nothing in here. There we go. And now I'm going to go over there and copy my April expenses. Control C. One row down there. Control V. Double click on that just to check, make sure it's grabbing everything, and it appears it is. So there we go. And so notice what we have now is we have 3 different months, January, March, and April, each with their own total expenses. Honestly, this is probably more likely how some sort of expenses spreadsheet would probably be set up. It'd be separated out by months. You probably wouldn't have everything in a big long column. So, and what we might want then is another sheet that actually finds the totals and summarizes for us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us one more sheet, double click on that, name this totals, like that. And I'm going to put year total. And so right now this sheet's going to be kind of empty. It's only going to have this one value on it. But what I want to do is I want to somehow automatically take each of these totals and add them together here, but they're on different sheets. So this is so we need to do what's called a sheet reference. So we talked about cell references, we talked about range references. We need to do what's called a sheet reference now. The way we do that is we type equals, and then we type the name of the sheet. So I'm going to type JAN for January, and we follow it by an exclamation point. That exclamation point tells Excel, oops, sorry y'all, I'm trying to remember to zoom these in before I do anything on them. So equals JAN exclamation point. That exclamation point tells Excel the thing before this exclamation point is the name of a sheet. Then what I need to do is remember where my total is on this cell. It's in B1. So I'm going to go back to my totals. I'm going to type Jan exclamation point B1. And boom, 215.98. So I know that works. So what we can do in here now is go in there and do plus, and I can do MAR exclamation point B1, because they should all be in the same spot, plus a PR exclamation point B1. Hit enter, and boom, there's my total for those 3 months. And then if I added another month in here, I would have to remember to manually go in here and add the next month's total to this, which is a little bit tedious. Luckily, there's an easier way to do it. So one thing we can do, this doesn't solve this problem of adding new months super well, but it does make things a little bit easier. Instead of having to remember what the reference is and everything like that. So what I'm going to do in January, I'm going to select cell B1, which is where my total expense is. So it's my active cell. I'm going to go up here into this name box, and I'm going to type Jan total. And now what I've done is I've named this cell. Instead of, its name is still B1, that's its address, that's its reference, we can still use that, but I can now use this Jan total to refer to that cell as well, and I'll show you what I mean. So over here, I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna write equals, and I'm just gonna write Jan underscore total, and hit enter, and boom, there it is, that 215.98, same value. Obviously I don't want just that one, so I could go in March, select it, and do MAR underscore total. You'll notice I'm using an underscore. You can't have spaces in named ranges. So you could, I'm doing an underscore, you could do MAR, then capital T total, whatever, come up with, whatever convention makes sense for you and your needs. I'm gonna do March total there. I'm gonna do April total there. And now what we could do is anytime we make a new sheet for a new month, if we remember to name this that month underscore total, it becomes a little bit easier to come in here and edit this, because all we have to do is plus March total plus April total, and there we go, we get that total back again, 652.40. Still though, it's not automated, and one of the benefits of Excel is that you can automate so much stuff. If you need some cell to automatically update when you input new information, there is almost always a way to do that without you having to go back and manipulate that cell again. And so what we're going to do here, so these named ranges are useful for something like this, but it's also really great just because we might need these totals other places. Maybe we're doing other things with these totals, and so it's really nice to just be able to refer to them as Jan underscore total and not have to remember what cell it's in every time we want to reference it. But to solve our specific problem here of, well, I want to be able to add more months and have it automatically include the total from that month, we're going to do something called a 3D reference. So we have had cell references, a number followed by a letter that's just the address of that cell. There's two types of those. We have our absolute and our relative cell references. We have range references, which is a cell reference colon and then another cell reference. We have sheet references, which have the exclamation point. We have named ranges, which are a form of reference. And now we have what's called a 3D reference. It's going to use our sheet references. So I'm going to type equals, and I'm going to type Jan, and then notice, actually, this, I forgot it did this. As I start typing, it recognizes that there's a named range that has JAN in it, so that's really nice. You don't even have to necessarily remember your named ranges. And we could just click on it, but we're not going to. I'm going to do Jan colon A P R. Actually, can I just do colon like that? We'll see how that works. APR, and then an exclamation point, and then I'm going to do cell B. What was it? B1 was our cell there. Oh no, I broke it. Why do you not like that? Sorry, y'all. Give me 1 second to troubleshoot this. I could have sworn this is the exact. It doesn't like that. Oops. Jan. Formula in the cell contains an error. Oh. Hot. Oops. There's a parenthesis right there. Now it doesn't like the reference. So, actually, I may as well explain what's happening here. So I've done something that Excel doesn't like. It can't figure out what I'm trying to get it to do. So it throws this up, hashtag ref, exclamation point. This is an error. And it's specifically a reference error. It says invalid cell reference error. Moving or deleting cells caused an invalid cell reference or function is returning a reference error. Fascinating. I'm going to just delete this and start over. Jan, colon, April, B1. Interesting. It's fine with that, but then as soon as I hit the... Something is breaking, and I am not sure what. I might have to revisit this after I troubleshoot this, but give me 1 moment. That is funky, y'all. I had this working earlier on on the same sheet, but when I was prepping, and so I think something on my sheet broke. So this will be a good chance for us to sort of troubleshoot and walk through a process here. What is... Okay. So... Well, all right. I wanted this to be super useful for us. But I don't know why it's breaking. Equals April. Oh. April. Oh my goodness, y'all. I know what's happening. Okay, so we had an error. Obviously, the errors in Excel aren't super clear, right? It didn't tell me exactly why the thing I was trying wasn't working because it can't read my mind. Here's what I did wrong. I didn't tell it what I wanted it to do with that reference. What I want it to do is I want it to add together. I want to use the sum formula. Okay, now that I have the sum formula, before we did something like B5 to B1000 or something like that, that was the range. In this case, the range I want to select is not all cells next to each other on a single sheet. It's a single cell on multiple different sheets, but it's the same cell on every sheet. And so this is where I do this. So I'm going to tell it, start with the January sheet, colon, go to the April sheet. And when I say go to the April sheet, it's literally talking about the order here. And I'll move these around in a second to show how that changes things. Do the exclamation point to tell it we're talking about sheets. And then put the cell reference we care about in there. In this case, it's B1. There we go. Hey Google, I need some more light. Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay. So notice, so grab those. That is our total: 215, 269, 166. That's our total there, 652. I don't know why I have a 0 there. I'm going to move. So I'm going to click on January. I'm going to click and drag it to in front of total. Oh wait, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to move March out of them. There we go. I want to move, and notice that updated in real time right as I did that. So watch this cell up here. As I move March back in between those two, it updates it. So it's literally saying start with this sheet that's right here and go to this sheet that's right there. They may have broken this when they fixed it too. Yeah. So we can't just create an open-ended reference there if we just delete the April. But what we can do, and actually watch what I have. I'm going to type December in there, and we're going to get another error. But notice we get a different a security warning, which is not actually relevant in this case. But we get a name error here. Invalid name error. The formula contains unrecognized text. Because I told it... Oh, that's weird. That is why it did that. Oh, yeah. So Excel tried to do another thing here for us automatically. It couldn't find a sheet called December. And so it inserted something to try to find it. So since December doesn't exist, it just won't do that for me. So what I'm going to do down here, create a few more sheets. April, we're going to do May. We could do all of them, but I'm just going to skip straight to December. Do December. I'm going to put these in order down here. May, December. Go back over to my total. And fix this. There we go. All the way over there. All the way to December. Awesome. And now, I have, and obviously we could have all 12 months in here. But now as I go in and say, I'm going to copy this into May, copy it also into December right there. Now as I go through, once we get to May to December, I can just start inputting my expenses, and they will automatically total up here. One of the things we're going to talk about on day 4 in a couple of weeks is expanding this to say, give me a total for all bus fares, registration fees, each of my categories here. And what we can do is we can create sort of a nice little dashboard or summary page or something like that So we'll have all of this data, which we could dive into if we needed to specifically, but we would have sort of a cover page for our Excel workbook that has sort of a summary of all of the relevant information. What was that? That was 3 references, named ranges. Nice. Okay. Questions about that? Or other questions, just in general? One thing I will have you all sort of kind of start thinking about is like any specific things you need Excel to do or something like that. I keep wanting to say Friday, day 4, our last day. I want to devote part of the time to actually like walking you through specific things that you need to be able to do in Excel. So day 3 next week we'll talk about formatting. What is day 3 overall? Styling, formatting, sorting, and filtering. Oh yeah, that styling, formatting, sorting, and filtering are all contained in day 3. We're going to talk about VLOOKUP, that sort of stuff, and that should give us a bunch of tools so that on day 4 we can come together. We'll expand out. We'll build onto this little sample file I have. Make it do even more stuff. And then my hope is to, like I said, show you how to do any specific things that you want to be able to do in Excel that we haven't talked about yet. Yeah, so be thinking about that. Be thinking about like what would you, is there a specific thing you would like to accomplish in Excel that you haven't yet figured out how to do in this class? Some of it will very likely be answered next week, but then there'll still probably be a few things that you want to know. But yeah, we made good time tonight. Again, still ended about 20 minutes early. But I am here if you all have questions, if there's any particular thing you want to talk about regarding what we did tonight, or if you want to make sure we cover a certain piece of content in the next couple of nights. But otherwise, that's all I have for you. And yeah, you're free to go. Not that you weren't before. But yeah, I'll remain on the line, on the call for a little bit, just in case anybody has any questions or wants me to show them anything we did here more specifically or anything like that. Yeah. No problem. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, everybody have an awesome night. Me too. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, thank you for being here. Glad to help. Any questions or anything for me, Diana?